Hello and welcome to this latest edition of Cracking the Rich Code, the podcast. I am John Verico, your host, and I love doing this show. And you hear me say that all the time, but it's because I get a chance to talk to some really, really cool and very, very interesting people. My guest today is a scale and systems strategist who helps primarily women-owned businesses so that they don't have to uh, depend on uh, you know, she helps them build their businesses so they don't have to depend on those businesses. It's really, really interesting. I can't wait to learn more about how she learned to scale. I will tell you, she started her first business at the age of 28, scaled it to over $1 million in just a couple of years, and now has a $17 million business. And I'm so excited to find out how she did this. Okay, we're going to bring in Sailynn Doyle right now. Good
Hey,
morning, Sailynn. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't wait to meet you when I saw your bio and learned a little bit about you. I'm like, wow, that's pretty incredible. I want to know more about how you're able to do stuff like this and kind of, the little bit about the mindset that you have, and then even more so, kind of the person behind it all. As you know, that's the purpose behind the Cracking the Rich Code podcast, is to get to know the people behind the stories that are in the book. And you are in volume 20, which is, as of this recording, just about ready to come out on the street. So it should be out shortly. And I know the world is just waiting to hear from you.
Well, I'm super excited to be in volume 20. It was an honor and opportunity to work with all the amazing co-authors. So excited for this. So yeah, let's dive in.
Let's dive in. So first of all, tell us a little bit about. I mean, you started your first business quite young at 28, and some people say, "Oh, that's not all that young." I know kids who started. It's different, right? It's very, very different because you hit that $1 million mark in just a couple of years. So let's talk about. Well, first of all, what was that business, and what made you decide to go that route?
Yeah, so great question. So, on a warm, sunny Sunday in August of 2006, I was sitting on my boyfriend's boat, and the girl next to me said, "What do you want to do?" And out of my mouth came, "Start my own business." I think she meant for like drinks or dinner later, but that's what came out. But the universe is always sending you signs. And Monday morning, I dragged myself into my job, and there was an email in my inbox that said, "Have you ever thought of starting your own business?" And I was like, "Oh, like it's a sign." And what it turned out to be was a franchise consulting company. And I looked at everything, John. I mean, smoothie shops, sub shops, closet design, dog training, everything that you could think of, and nothing really hit home. And then, unfortunately, around Thanksgiving of that year, my boyfriend's father passed away unexpectedly at the age of 57.
Oh,
And
that's
it really, yeah, it really kicked me in the butt to say, if you want to start a business, like you better get going kind of deal, because 28, I was almost 30, right? I was getting old. And so, again, the universe sent me another sign. I was at the time working for a visiting nurse agency, and this woman wanted to have a conversation with me about us working together, her company and the VNA. And she owned a senior home care franchise. And I was like, "Is this a franchise?" And she's like, "Yes." And I'm like, "Can I come meet with you actually?" And so I learned more about it. I got back with the consultant, researched 5 different franchises in that industry, and signed on the line the day before the year ended in 2006. I had no idea what I was getting myself into, but just I felt like everything was lining up. And we opened May of 2007. And I had no idea what I was doing. I bought a franchise specifically for that business in a box, right? I was
right.
28. I had no idea. My parents weren't business owners. I was lucky that my boyfriend at the time, he had a family business. So I had been watching him for years. And so I kind of had an idea, but you never really know, right? Fast forward 3 years later, I had hit $1 million in revenue, but unfortunately, instead of celebrating, I was sitting in my car at 9 a.m. sobbing because I had just covered another shift for a caregiver who called out sick. And that was my draw a line in the sand moment that something had to change because I couldn't keep going at 80 hours a week.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That gets intense. And I think people who want to start their own business don't realize sometimes how much effort has to go into it and how much is on the shoulders. I know that I didn't become an entrepreneur until much later in life.
Mhm.
I mean, I always depended on having that regular paycheck tether uh, anchor, as a security blanket, if nothing else. And and I was doing some stuff on the side. I mean, I've been a speaker and a coach on the side as an entrepreneur, but it was on the side. I didn't rely on that for my income. And so, I didn't really worry about it so much. I took care of that. I did everything, the books and chasing business and doing the marketing and all of that stuff and still fulfilling stuff for the clients.
Mhm.
And there's so much involved in that. And then when I retired from the day job, that's when I finally went, full on entrepreneur. And boy, I tell you, I was terrified.
Yeah, it definitely is a journey. People say it's a personal development growth journey, and it truly is.
It
It
is.
tests
Yes.
everything about you. Now I've done, I don't know, multiple businesses out there in multiple different industries, online, in person, brick and mortar, service-based, product-based, everything under the sun. And you really get to figure out where you're really resilient, what mindset hurdles you have to overcome, and whether you're really in it for the long haul. And when I start working with an business owner, if they're on the newer side, I ask them that straight up, like, are you in this for the long haul? Because it is going to be a roller coaster. We're going to have great days, we're going to have good days, we're going to have not so good days, but the majority should be good, and you should enjoy it.
Now, you said you've owned multiple businesses. What types of career fields have those been in? Like what kind of services did those provide?
Yeah, so after I sold my franchise in 2017, I had that for 10 years. I started a online women's clothing boutique because what woman doesn't want like to have a cute little boutique? Well, I realized that I'm a better shopper than seller and that I should not turn every passion into a business. Uh,
Oh, good point. We'll talk about
right?
that more.
Yep. So 14 months later, I closed the door on that very happily. And I moved into the direct sales world. And where I particularly love that is I was just helping women start their own businesses and coach them in business and grow in business. And so I had been working with a marketing coach at the time, and she was like, Sailynn, you love business. It was COVID. She's like, you need to be a business coach. And I had this stereotype in my head of what a business coach was, and it was not me. And she was like, then make it your own. And I did. And now, 5.5 years later, here we are. So it truly is my passion. I love business. Prior to owning my first business, I had 5 jobs in 7 years. That's part of the reason I wanted to own my own business, is because I had been laid off twice and had a short-term contract. And so I was desperate to reclaim control over my time and money. And
Right.
so, I've worked in so many different industries, and it allows me to really relate to the women that I coach and work with and support because I've done so many different things in my life. So, yeah, it's been an amazing ride, but entrepreneurship is definitely not for the weak.
So now you have created this amazing business of helping women with their businesses and helping to scale them. And I think that's really important. Understanding how to scale without becoming overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And I
Here's
mean, and we talked a little bit about how overwhelming it can be to own your own business.
Yeah, because here's the thing. When I was sitting in my car back in 2010, sobbing my eyes out, um, I knew that I couldn't keep going at that pace, 80 hours a week. And so, at the insistence of my mom, she had me meet with a family friend who was a coach. And, I was really embarrassed about it because honestly, I was a figure out kind of girl, like problem solver, all of this. And so, I put the appointment on my calendar as private and I skulked out the back door down the plaza to this shady diner and I vomited all of my problems on him and was like, okay, if you're so good, like tell me what's wrong. And he summed everything up into one theme, which was systems. And he said, you are a teller. If someone on your team has a question, you tell them what to do. And that's why my open door policy looked more like a revolving door at Macy's on Black Friday. It just spun
Right.
all day long from 8 to 5. And I couldn't get anything done that I needed to get done until everyone went home.
You're solving
And
everybody else's issues.
exactly. And so what happened after that meeting was I had a team member come into my office and ask me a question. And I said to myself, like, why is she asking me the same question that I've already answered like 10 times? Like I wanted to like stick a fork in my eye. And so I dug into that system that night when everyone went home. And it turns out that, sure, there was a system, but it was out of date. I probably put it together when I was really busy and not paying attention. So it wasn't put together real well. It was kind of crappy. And that showed me that it was like, okay, there really is no system here. Right. So I spent an hour redoing that system that night. The next morning, I went into the office and I said to that team member, I said, hey, can I meet with you for a couple minutes? And she was like, sure. We met for 30 minutes. I explained to her the 3 steps of my 3-step freedom systems formula, which I now teach clients. She asked me one question and I gave her the document and she went on her way. And I was like, okay, great. And so a couple weeks later, I said to her, hey, how's it going with that system? And she was like, fabulous. And she went back to work. And my mind was blown because in just 90 minutes, I had not only created a system, but I had delegated it to her once and never touched it again for the next 7 years that I own that business. And
Wow.
so this is the whole thing is if you have a team that is in your inbox before your feet even hit the ground in the morning, right? Before you get out of bed, if you have clients that are asking you the same questions or having the same issues all the time, or you're feeling like your revenue is capped because you're out of a time capacity, it's because you may have systems, but they may have been like mine. And so, in order to truly scale, there's 2 frameworks that you have to use in order to get systems set up efficiently and that are also going to work. And then a delegation framework that is going to allow you to delegate it once and be done with it. And that's called my one and done delegation method. And so when you have those together, that's when you can truly scale because you're not responsible for anything, everything, and anything anymore.
Right. So many entrepreneurs are, we're in a boat where we are trading time for money
Yep.
and not able to scale because of that.
Mhm.
So let's share a little bit of that secret sauce. I guess you
Yeah.
gave us some hints about it in the book.
Yeah. So when I turned the business around back in 2010, I spent 2 years figuring everything out, redesigning the foundation of the business. And 2 years later, it was October of 2012, I was able to leave the business for 30 days straight without being attached to my laptop, without being attached to my cell phone, and without the business falling apart. And when I got back, I was like, okay, I'm on to something. And I fine tuned that business to the point where I was working 16 hours a week. So I went from 80 to 16. And I went from 1 million to 3.3 million. And the less I worked, the more money we made, right? And I turned it really
Wow.
into a well-oiled, I know, money-making machine. And it was all because I had this system that I developed. And so women started asking me, like, how'd you do it? How'd you do it? How is this even happening that your business is growing and you're barely working? And when I got into the coaching space, I realized that I needed to break it down into a framework that I could explain and teach other women. And that is what I now call the 16-hour owner system. It's based on 4 core pillars: structure, systems, support, and streamline. And these are actually the 4 pillars. Like if you look at every big business, Amazon, Apple, Airbnb, they all have these 4 pillars in business. But what happens is when we start a business, we usually skip over them or don't do a great job with them. And so we're missing pieces or we've skipped them all together. But when we integrate them into the business, like I do with my clients, then they now have that solid foundation that they can grow as big as they want without everything being on their shoulders, right? Business starts to feel easier, cleaner, more well run. Like the business isn't running you, you're actually running the business.
That's amazing. So, first of all, for those of you who are just kind of tuning in late for some reason, I don't know why, you need to go back and listen to this from the beginning. Sailynn is absolutely brilliant at understanding how systems work and how to scale a business. And we're having a fantastic conversation with Sailynn Doyle, who is in volume 20 of Cracking the Rich Code. So now, Sailynn, let me just ask, because there's lots of different types of businesses, obviously. What types of things is this really most appropriate for?
Honestly, John, every single business needs this.
I knew you were going to say that.
Well, because here's the thing is I've helped women who have boutiques, interior designers, digital marketing agencies, mobile IV clinics, lawyers, massage spas, all different types of women, coaches, consultants, everything, because these are like the fundamentals in business that you must have. But as I said, we skip over them. And so these 4 pillars are so key. And so what I have is a free guide for our listeners called the $1 Million Business Owner's Blind Spot. And what it basically is it's going to explain to you what the 4 core pillars are. And then what it's going to do, it's going to ask you some questions under each one so you can self-assess whether your business is hitting the mark on each one. Like, so for instance, in pillar 2, it's systems. You might be like, yeah, I have systems. Well, maybe yours were like mine in 2010 and they were kind of crappy and not done real well, right? But it's going to ask you specific questions.
Or we shortcut our own selves.
Exactly.
Oh, I don't know how many times, I've seen, systems put in place and these are the steps in order to make these things work. But, I don't have time to do that today. So I'm just going to jump over to and get to this or whatever. And we wind up kind of destroying the system that we put in place by actually doing that.
Exactly, right. So the free guide is going to ask you some specific questions that will help you identify whether you actually have true systems in your business, right? Because what I see so many business owners doing is they're like, oh, I need a system, right? And they go and do it and they check the box. But like I said, if you're not following the 3-step freedom systems formula, and the
Yeah.
one and done delegation method, then you can check a box and make a checklist and all of that, but it's never going to take that system and hand it over to someone on your team and have them be able to have job ownership. Because here's the thing that most business owners don't understand: you can have a team that's super helpful, but if they don't own their job, they're never going to be a true support team, right? Like, they're
Right.
help, but
Right.
they're not helpful. And so when you use
Ooh, love that designation.
Ooh, right? So when you put those two systems together, and there are many frameworks inside of my signatures system, the 16-hour owner system, you realize, like, okay, this is why my system isn't being utilized by my team, or this is why when I delegated it, I'm still getting questions about it all the time. Right. And so I fill in those missing pieces that I had to learn the hard way, that, all the gurus out there just say, go make systems. Well, guess what? There's a system in order to make a proper system. So, yeah, that's how things kind of
A
allow
system to make
you
a system.
to,
I love it.
yeah, you have to. You have to have those steps in place in order to be able to work 16 hours a week, which is totally possible, and continue to grow your revenue. So it's all a big circle.
It's amazing, and I love how how you talk about delegation in a way that actually gives people authority and empowerment to do what they need to do. One of the best bosses I ever worked for took 10% of his budget and put it towards projects that were likely to fail. And
So
he said,
good.
if these things succeed, it'll be a game changer. But if they don't, if the technology or whatever isn't there, then we've learned something.
Yep.
And so then we can know what to try next. But removing that fear of failure and encouraging people to take risk, to take ownership. Boy, it actually worked out so well. So a lot of those probably impossible projects actually wound up bearing fruit
Mhm.
because of
Yep.
that. And it's all because of how things are delegated.
Yep. And so in pillar 3, which is support, your support team, we go into that so much, right? Like, when I left in October of 2012 for 30 days, it was during the WWJD, What Would Jesus Do movement time that was hot back then. And so I
Right.
printed a
Yep.
picture of myself and I put WWSD, What Would Sailynn Do? And I taped it to everyone's computer before I walked out the door, because I wanted them to know, like, okay, what would she do? And let me go try it. Because even though I worked in healthcare and we were responsible for people's lives, my mindset has always been, as long as no one's passing away by accident, we're doing okay. And so you're gonna make a mistake, and that's okay, but at least you try. Go fix it. And so I wanted to empower them with the authority to make decisions on their own and, own their job, because that's how you learn. And honestly, I hired amazing people and I wanted them to do the tasks and the jobs better than I could do them. I was a jack of all trades, expert at none. And I wanted them to be the expert in their role and own it and do better than I would do.
So you mentioned, and before I forget, and I don't want to lose track of this, you mentioned that you have this free guide, the $1 Million Business Owners Blind Spot.
Mhm.
And so, is that available for folks on your website, or are you going to make it available in another way?
Nope, it's exactly available on the website, which is going along the bottom right now. But
Right. For
basically,
those people who are only listening, that is passion, purpose, posture.com. So just
Yep.
all those words together, passionpurposeposture.com, which is a tongue twister, by the way. Don't try to say it too fast.
It is a tongue twister, but it's the things that I believe are important, right?
I love it.
You should have a passion for living your best life, and you should have a purpose out there of why you're having your business. And for me, posture is shoulders back and the confidence to lock arms with other women and humans and run towards your goals together and know that it's collaborations are going to help.
What a fantastic visual that puts together. People standing there, hooked arms together, like this big wall of success.
Exactly, exactly. Because, here's the thing, John. I worked with seniors. I worked at a VNA for 3 years, and then I owned a senior home care franchise for 10 years. And here's what I know firsthand. No one at the end of their life ever said to me, I wish I had worked more. They expressed all of their
Yeah,
regrets. I wish I
exactly.
had a better relationship with my spouse, right? I wish my kids were here caring for me instead of you. I wish I had taken that trip. And I ran a private pay agency and they paid me hundreds of thousands of dollars. And, at that point in your life when you've worked so hard to earn all of that money and all they really wanted was relationships and memories. And so what I do and why I am so dedicated to helping women build a business that supports their one life is because I never want to have a woman tell me like I've got to the end of my life and I have regrets, right? I shouldn't have gone to that business meeting and I should have gone to my kids' soccer game. I want them to have a business that runs without them in the daily operations so they can live their life.
So many of us in life um, withhold our happiness and
Mhm.
withhold our fulfillment, and we keep like waiting for the next thing.
Mhm.
I can't wait to graduate. I married. I can't wait to have kids. I can't wait till the kids
Mhm.
are out of the house. I can't wait to go, to retire. I can't wait to go back to work. Like, oh my goodness, stop waiting and just be happy in the moment and enjoy the life. And you're right. So many of us get to the end, that
Mhm.
end zone and look back and go, man, all the missed opportunities, all the things that I did not do that I probably should have done while I had the time to do so.
Yeah, because all the money
And
in the
so I
world, you
love this.
can't take it with you.
Exactly, exactly. I want to spend my last penny as I go out the door.
Exactly, right?
I mean,
Exactly.
that's assuming, of course, that my wife's not around and doesn't need it.
Hey,
I want her to have, yeah.
But,
Well, this
truly,
is
this is the thing is we go into business for freedom and flexibility and time and money, but we need to enjoy it along our journey and not wait for that success in order to enjoy it.
right. And also, it redefines success.
Mhm.
Success is not necessarily the amount of money that you bring in. Success is how much you're enjoying life.
Exactly. Well
So,
said.
this has been a fantastic conversation with the delightful Sailynn Doyle. She is uh, scale and systems strategist. You want to check her out at, put this on the screen again, passion, purpose, posture.com. Read her chapter in Cracking the Rich Code, Volume 20. And if you want to reach out to her, probably one of the best ways to reach her is on LinkedIn, and it is just her name. Fortunately, there's not a lot of other Sailynns out there.
There is
Uh,
not.
so
There is
so
not.
Sailynn N. Doyle is an extra N there. Oh no, there's not. There's two N's at
Nope.
the end of the name. Sailynn Doyle on LinkedIn. Definitely check her out. Connect with her there. Visit her website and download her free gift, which is $1 Million Business Owners Blind Spot. Definitely look at all of that stuff. Sailynn, this has been a delightful conversation. And, I just said there aren't many Sailynns out there. And I love names, and that's a very interesting and very pretty name. So where does it come from, though?
Yes. So my parents were boaters. I was actually supposed to be a Bridget, but I came out 9 pounds, 11 ounces with a lot of red hair. And my mother said that Bridgets were supposed to be tiny, petite little girls. And so no name for 5 days. And mom came up with Sailynn. Dad wanted Keel, but we ended up with Sailynn.
Uh, I love, well, as an old Navy guy, I appreciate the the aquatic name, but I love it. I was wondering when I first saw your name and heard how it was pronounced, and I thought, I wonder if they were listening